Hello, and welcome to my review of Senjutsu. I would like to thank all my subscribers for watching, and just a quick reminder, I am doing the 2024 giveaway, so check out that video pop-up, should be in the upper right corner somewhere there. But anyways, let's continue with the review. I don't do a lot of game reviews just because I know I have a preference for certain games, and not everyone agrees with me, which is fine. But for games I really do like, or I really just feel like they need to be reviewed, I do reviews for. And Senjutsu is one of those games. So with that, what is Senjutsu? It is a deck building game for 1 to 2 players for either 1-on-1, 2-on-2, free-for-all, or 1-on-3 deathmatch, whatever. They use a hex grid movement system for combat by playing cards in your hand. Maneuver is also a big part of it. So if you're a big X-Wing fan or snapship tactics, positioning is really important. It's fun to work around that. Senjutsu is also based during the Sengoku period of Japan's history. If you're interested in Sengoku history, you should definitely check out anything really about it, because this game does not really cover anything about the Sengoku period of Japan. And if you don't want to, short history lesson, it's technically Japan's Civil War. And it's also, for some reason, the most overused period of Japanese history. I'm not exactly sure why. I guess because it's just the warring states of just nonstop battle and the rise of the shogunate. So I think that is why they framed it in the description during the time. But with that, what does it have to do with the Senjutsu period? Absolutely nothing. There are some name drops. Not really, but there are some name drops. But from what I can tell, nothing in here, even in the campaign, has anything really to do with the Sengoku period. It's just really weird that they chose that. And honestly, it's kind of the reasons I backed this game, because Japan's history is really weird. Now, why did they do that? I'm pretty sure it's part of marketing. That, or it's just a limited understanding that, that was the time when the samurai were fighting all the time with guns. I don't know. I have no idea why they did it. But I'm pretty sure it was a marketing gimmick or a misunderstanding of history. Because the Genpei period seems more of what people think samurai are. Alright, with that tidbit out of the way, this is a review of the all-in big box. I don't have the retail version of the game, and I have not seen the retail version of the game in public. I've seen pictures of it online, and from what I can tell, the minis aren't stained and the box is way smaller, but I'm not sure if you're going to get plastic terrain or anything like that. So this is just going to be the big box all in. So the components are probably going to vary if you pick up the retail edition. But at the core, gameplay mechanics should be the same. I also have not played the campaign. I read through it. I wasn't really interested in the campaign. Games like this I buy to play with people, not by myself. And the campaign is really weird because it's usually just basically a lot of one-offs for the expansion characters. Then there's a campaign that merges to a 2-player campaign. It's kind of weird. This is one of the best packaged games I've ever seen out of the box. I love it, and I wish that more companies would take the effort to actually make stuff fit in the box correctly. I have the manual out here, but if you've seen the unboxing videos, you saw how it came shipped. But the minis are packed extremely well. These don't fit as well, but they still fit and the box closes, which I really like. I do like the fact that they made this little cutout here just to put the board. But this is extremely well thought out, and it was designed with the intention to sleeve the cards. As you can see, all the cards are sleeved and they fit in, and it's phenomenal. I'm super impressed with that. It's not perfect by any means like this, because these cards, if I stack them, they start spilling out sleeved, but it's still really good. And, the small component tray being this giant mess, it fits. It's not super organized, but it's better than most. Stone Sword Games did a very good job on this, and like I said, I really wish that more game designers would do this. This, like, is just perfect. I don't know how many boxes came in a shipping box. I imagine 4. You could fit 4 probably. 4 or 6. But it's efficient. And kudos. The details of the minis are impressive. Some of the minis are deformed. I believe that's the plastic setting when they're hot and thrown out of the mold. The wash is tacky and it does smell like cancer. Those are issues that kind of cleared up, but they still definitely smell like cancer. But you can see like this bending. And that's fairly common. It's not anything to hate, but just the amount of detail that they put on every individual piece is amazing. The cardboard pieces are in the realm of good to bad. The cardboard shrine is not very stable. It's just a little small cutout, just like the bamboo. Honestly, the shrine should just go on a plastic stand, but they gave it a little foot, and it's just not very good. But a lot of these cardboard pieces that are 3D that you build, they kind of work, but they're not great. On the plus side, the terrain is very easy to identify. They're all very unique pieces. Like, obviously, the coloring with the bamboo. You look at the symbology, it's obviously what it is. And then if you got the big box all in, they're all plastic. I'm hoping they actually include this in the core box. It looks like this should be in the core box, but don't quote me on that. But the cardboard terrain, if you have the plastic terrain, I mean, the cardboard terrain works. It's very easily to identify. The 3D ones, of course, but then we have like corpse tokens and caltrop tokens. They're very easy to identify also. So everything is clearly marked, very easy. And sometimes I prefer the cardboard for certain terrain. Like the boat, it's just an extension for the map to connect like the bridge to another section of the board. And putting your minis on that versus a cardboard boat token, it's flat. So it makes more sense. But the detail on the plastic terrain is also really good. Same issues because it's the same coating and same cancer smell. The big box comes with 2 neoprene dueling boards and the cardboard one. The cardboard is reversible. It's the same. And it really doesn't matter. It's just preference. This is the main board, and I think this is the board that will be used for tournaments. And honestly, for how small it looks, it actually works really well for the game. Then there's this larger board that's mainly used for campaign play, but we've done it with 4 players, and this is a very wonky board. It's not symmetrical at all. It does allow for some really fun positioning with the hazards, with the environment, but it's also kind of claustrophobic, but usually we'll just end up fighting in this central area here is the death arena. Sometimes we'll move to a bigger arena like that side. But from what I've seen in the campaign books, this is mainly for a campaign, or if you want to do a bigger game. The terrain placement does offer a lot of variety, especially just like all the other positioning games. Use obstacles to your advantage or to hinder your opponents. And you can't create a perfectly laid out death trap by putting, a cluster of rocks to, well, I guess you could if your opponent lets you get away with it. But the way terrain is placed is your opponent, whoever has the highest advantage number gets to place the first piece, and then your opponent, it goes around. How many terrain pieces you want to use, that's up to you. That's an agreement between you and the person you're playing with. You can use none, you can use all of them. It's kind of crazy how constricted you can make it. But getting away with a perfect kill funnel, it's got to be really hard, especially with the way that pieces switch back and forth with other players. The terrain is also really fun because the push and pull mechanic of this game is amazing. Almost every piece of terrain, if you are pushed or pulled into it, or forced to move into that location, you're going to take a stun. And some characters have abilities that will push characters into a rock, or pull characters into a rock, or cart, or whatever. It's actually a really neat system. I like it a lot because the terrain is a hazard and it's an advantage of pushing and pulling. A lot of cool tactics. Also, some really cool things. You can deflect a character and make them rotate out of the way with certain blocks, and then they're forced to move as a mandatory movement. They'll also run into a rock and get a stun. It's actually really neat how the combat mechanics of this game work. We have played all the characters from the big box except for two of them, which is Musashi and Kojiro. And those are like kind of the big name drops that this game has. Miyamoto Musashi, guy who wrote 5 Rings, guy who came up with the Niten sword school of wielding 2 swords. And then Kojiro, which was considered one of the greatest swordsmen and taught the shogun. And he had this amazing technique called the swallowtail cut, I believe. We didn't play them because, honestly, they seem kind of boring. But we have tried all the characters, and the mix of characters and the way they work, each one is very unique in their own way. They're all different. The ninja and assassin kind of play the same. But overall, the variety that you get out of the big box, it's actually pretty good. The base game is going to release with these 4 characters, and the rest are going to be expansion characters. We have the warrior, the student, the master, and the ronin. There's some key stuff to note here. So this top number up here is your advantage. And that interacts with the advantage tracker, which is this handy dandy little cardboard piece. And this is a way to break ties. So we have the master at 74, and then we'll use the warrior at 35. It's a real simple system to break ties, and it allows whoever has the advantage to choose who goes first when they play an initiative value. And that's really important because of how the tactics are in this game. Blocking doesn't really matter too much, but positioning matters and attacks matter. Certain attacks will force an opponent to move into you, which you might want, and then they'll miss. Or it will allow you to strike first and then move away. Really neat, really simple, no more debating. There was one instance, but it was small. But I like the advantage system. It's just very clean and simple. And these positions can switch. There are cards that will switch the ability with this symbol, allows whoever in whatever position just goes straight to the top and kicks everyone down. Real simple system. The next number we have is hand size. That is 5 cards from your deck. You do have a core card and a weapon card that are not part of your hand size, and they can never be discarded. It's actually really nice because it allows you some freedom if you get stuck with cards that you don't want to play or you want to save them up. At the end of the round, you have to discard down to your hand size. There are ways to draw cards in combat, but you have to discard down to your hand size. Again, you get to keep your core combat card, or your core card and your weapon. And your core cards are going to say core on them. The last number, and probably the most important number on this, is your health. Almost every character has 5 health. The ninja and assassin have 4, and the drunken pirate has like 8. It's basically how many wounds you can take before you, I guess, die. Granted, certain cards like Stun will take you out of the game if it's equal to your wound limit. And Stun is a card that goes into your hand and clogs up your hand. The last part of the characters is the weapons that they can pick. You only get to pick one of the weapons. So here, the Ronin can use the katana, the naginata, the nodachi, and the yari. So for his weapon card, I've picked the naginata card. Core card, mandatory, so you're stuck with that. And this is an action you can always play, but you have to follow all the costs. So every time you do play one of the core cards, it's going to tell you to discard a card from your hand, your choice, which kind of sucks, but also kind of fits the theme of the mentality of dueling and the tension and how you're getting fatigued and losing concentration in a fight. And the layout of all the cards is pretty much the same. It's either going to be this format or this format. These cards are also repeatedly used because at the end of the turn, they will go back into your hand. You can only play one card, though. unless you have like a additional effect card. We also have, with every character, they have their own Kami card. This is basically switching into mindsets of how you fight. And sometimes you'll have cards like this. If you're in that, you'll get a bonus. So being an aggression with the following restraint, if you are an aggression, it will go at initiative 5 instead of 3. Or if you're in balance, it opens up a lot more movement options. But you have neutral, aggression, balance, and determination. And then we have the focus icon. The ring is a neat system. As you can see, this card has an arrow, which means you can only go into aggression, and if you go to aggression, you're kind of stuck there. But you can go to focus and go back to aggression, and it will give you a focus token. The way the ring's movement works is, if you hit a focus location, you're going to continue going on to the next node unless you can't. Then you have to go back, as with this arrow here. But let's say we're at balance or determination, and we shifted down to balance. That's one move. You can switch from balance back if you have a shift 2. Switching is a different mechanic in the game, where if your Kami ring is stuck in aggression and you have switched, this card switches you to aggression. But there are ways to switch out of aggression. You can go anywhere you want except to the focus. And you do not get a focus for passing over it because you're not really sliding, you're just moving it to the next location. This is pretty much the only way to get focus is going through your Kami ring system. Other ways to get it are hanging out at the shrine, but focus is a valuable resource. You can't have more than 3 focus tokens, and you use them for really cool effects, like this card. You got to pay 3 focus to be able to play this card, but look at that wave of damage everywhere. And then you get a bonus step 1 forward and do more damage. The shrine's also unique about giving out focus. So if you end your turn next to the shrine, not on it, you will get a focus token. So we have the Master next to the shrine at the end of the turn, he's going to get it. And we have the Ronin, which is 1 space away, not next to it, doesn't get it. Each character also has a specialty card pool deck. As we can see, these say Ronin at the bottom. These are all the Ronin's cards. You won't be able to play all these cards in the deck. Like, you can only have 1 copy of a Jade card. You can have only 1 copy up to 8 of a gold card. But you can have 8 gold cards, just only 1 of each. But Jade cards specifically, you can only have 1 of in the deck. And then steel cards, you can have 2 of, and wood cards, you can have 3 of. So just because you have all your cards doesn't mean you get to play with all of them. You still have to follow the deck building restrictions. Thematically, some of the stuff doesn't always make sense, because if you didn't pick the Naginata here, let's say you pick something short, like the Kanebo, doing this Death Whirlwind just thematically doesn't fit. You don't have the reach with a club versus a spear or a sword. And there's a lot of deck building options. It's hard to know all the characters. You might know some of the core cards to look out for, but for the most part, it's kind of just all over the place. I've tried metagaming and memorizing what the other characters' decks are, but with how everything is and the fact that there are just general steel, wood cards, gold cards, and jade cards, you can't always be sure they're going to take those jade cards that go to their class or the gold cards. There are 4 types of cards besides being a core card. The card types are going to be attack, defense, meditation, and core. Fire is an attack card. This water wave also means that it's a core card. Obviously, the Ronin core card will have the water wave. We have this Oxen Barrage that has the flame, which just flat out attack. Then we have meditation. Usually these are not combat cards or attacks, but they do some weird stuff. Like this one, target player or target samurai, opponent, target opponent. All cards target cancel all active ability cards. And then all get a stun, and then you got that fan, so you move the initiative. And then if you're aggression, you get these 2 optional anyway moves and 2 turns. And then last we have the defense, which is a mountain. All cards are going to have, in the upper left corner, their initiative value. Yes, initiative 0 is you're pretty much going to go last. Or an equal, which is basically a bonus, but it uses the matched initiative value of the card it's attached to. So usually it'll have a trigger, like this just remains in play, but this has to be played off a defense. Then you have a focus cost, so it'll be grayed out to tell you that it does no focus cost, or it will show you 1 to 3 of the focus icons. This card also has range. Not all the cards have range, but some attacks have range. Usually attacks are going to work like this, where it's going to show you your position. You have an arrow at the front of your figure, and then it shows you where it hits. So if your guy is off like that, he's facing that way, he's now going to hit this spot, and this spot, and miss. Versus if he was facing front towards enemy, like a claymore, he would hit his opponent. He'd also hit the shrine, but it would do nothing. We have instant effects, which is this little lightning bolt, and this plus, which is how it adds on to a modifier. There is one with a arrow swap. So the instant ability and instant additional effects are really neat. The instant additional is just a modifier you play with another card if you met the requirements, and they usually have really cool abilities. And the instant replacement is just a way to psych out your opponent. You're going to discard the original card you play to replace it with the new card. You get the new initiative, speed. You still have to meet all the requirements to do it, but it's a great way to psych out your opponent or to make up a bad play. We are going to have movement symbols. If a symbol is black, it is mandatory. If for some reason the Ronin here played this card, they are going to instantly bump into the shrine. If it was just white, they have the option of not moving and they wouldn't run into the shrine. Core card here shows you can move in any direction. You do not rotate, you move first into that direction and then you can rotate, or you can rotate before you move. Anything that shares the same line, like these two, you can do any of these options in any order, but you must do it fully before you do the other. So you can move and then rotate twice, or rotate twice and then move once. Pretty effective. So how initiative works is whoever has the highest initiative is going to do their actions first. So let's say the master did the dual side cross, which he can't carry size, but just for the sake of argument. We have this kicker here that we can pay the focus, and then they're going to have the split at 3, they'll do the other action. So the master has the focus, he'll spend that, he misses. Then next is going to trigger is this Oxen Barrage, which is a 5, which I should probably turn it that way. So, move 1. Optional, don't. The Ronin does not have the focus to turn, and then he attacks the space directly in front of him. Asterisk, determining player, and then they take a stun condition. If successful, which means you have to hit, then you can turn, and then you can push, and then you switch into aggression. Now, the master can go, because 5 is done, there's nothing left, and the master will give 1 wound to the Ronin. The layout of the cards is really simple to understand. It's kind of self-explanatory. And honestly, the back of the rules manual has a very good icon reference sheet if you're not sure on some of the symbology. As far as damage goes in this game, most of the attacks are going to do 1 wound and maybe have a follow-up attack that'll do another wound. very few cards, I shouldn't say very few, but getting to play these double wound cards is kind of rare. And then the execution, which is an insta-kill, doesn't matter how much health they have, it just takes them out of the game, is really hard to pull off. Really fun positioning, really fun to pull off those mechanics. Like with the Crimson Roll, it has that at 5, you get to move and do 2 more damage. So somehow if you manage to hit him up front and then run in and stab him for another 2, that's 4 damage. Really cool. This Flaming Phoenix is really hard to pull off, but if you can get it, that insta-kill is really strong. Here are our negative effect cards. So we have Wound, remains in play, counts as 1 wound. If you have as many wound cards as your character's wound limit, you are defeated. On the backside of the wound card is Bleeding Wound, remains in play, counts as a wound. While you have at least 1 bleed card at the start of your turn before you draw, you must discard the top card of your deck face down, maximum 1. If you have as many wound cards as character's wound limit, you're defeated. Bleeding is really brutal in the game. Discarding cards off the top of your deck and not knowing what they are can mess up a lot of your planning and keep you guessing for what you need. Here we have Stun. Counts towards your hand size, cannot be discarded from hand. You may play this card in as an ability card, which means you can play it and not do anything else, but you'll get rid of the stun. If you have as many stun cards in your hand as your character's hand limit, you're defeated. One of the characters loves giving out stuns and is terrible at giving out wounds. But stuns are also fun because, like I said, there's a push and pull mechanic with getting people to run into objects. And then you have Hobble. Hobble is not a wound, but it is a negative effect. It remains in play while active, reduce the initial speed of the played ability card to a minimum 1. So this 8 would be a 7. And then at the end of the turn, rotate this card 90 degrees. Then, if it's upright, discard it. So it will eventually go away. There is a thing that you can have multiple Hobbles. You can have multiple of all of these. Bleed is the only one where it's just no matter what, 1 card. The last negative effect card is Poison. Specifically, I've only seen these with the Assassins and the Ninja. You can only have 1 copy of each, and there's 2 copies of the 5. They all do random abilities. They're not game-breaking, but they definitely cause a lot of X Factor, and they're really neat, but for the most part, they don't hang around a lot. I really love the combat in this game. It fills me with nostalgia of watching old samurai movies with my dad back in the day. But it's like a really awesome balance and a dance where you push and pull. There's just this really cool ebb and flow to it. And with how the timing of the cards goes and how you have to outthink, and sometimes it's just guessing or play what you got, you can maneuver around the battlefield and use everything to your advantage. You can move terrain, move around terrain, force your opponent to move into a terrain or to a death trap. And with how you're doing initiative, you can always make sure that it's a guessing game. It's just a really, really fun system. I enjoy it a lot. I actually enjoy it a lot more than X-Wing or Snapships because dice hate me. This is a game that does reward skill versus dice. There are many times I've played X-Wing and I played Snapships and I played Armada where dice hate me. Like, statistically, it's just amazing how much dice hate me. So having cards that do damage with rewards, planning, and some luck, I really enjoy that. It's just a very tense and satisfying make or break moment sometimes. The advantage tracker, like I said earlier, it's just an easy way to break ties. I really like how clean and simple it is. There's no fiddling with it. It's, do you have advantage? Okay, you get to pick who goes first at that initiative. And there's some planning with it. Sometimes it'll work out. In bigger games, it turns into a mess, and it's really helpful. But for one-on-one duels, it's clean and concise. It makes it very simple. Now to the deck building of the game. So as I said earlier, you can only have 1 copy and only 1 Jade card in your deck. You can have up to 8 gold cards, but only 1 of each, so no doubling up. Steel cards, you can have 2 of each, and honestly, you can have as many as you want, I guess, until you hit 40. And then wood cards, you can have 3 of each. And then you have your core card and your weapon card that don't count towards your deck building. Jade cards, really, really powerful, but it's a one-time like power play move. Gold cards, really versatile cards. They're actually all really good. The steel and the wood cards are basically your main either movement or damage type cards or cards you want to toss because you have the most of. But overloading your deck with a bunch of gold cards kind of feels bad at times because you don't want to discard something good, but sometimes you have to. But with the right of this, and then we have what they give you for deck building. Like, this is a stack of steel cards. There's so much to the deck building in this game. They do give you multiple copies of the cards, enough for 2 people to basically play the same cards almost if you want to play almost the same deck. There is one stipulation with one of the wood cards. For some reason, it came with 5, and that's what Stone Sword is saying, that it's 5 instead of 6. How do you win at Senjutsu? Easiest way? You take out your opponent. Give them a bunch of wounds, give them a bunch of stuns, or if you bleed their deck where they're forced to draw a card and they can't, they take a wound. So that's what makes bleed really, really strong. There's also a few cards that get rid of bleed, but all it does is flip it over to a wound. So it still counts as damage, but you're not bleeding anymore. Overall impressions of the game. It's good. We've been enjoying the game. I still look forward to playing it. But the constant deck building does take up more time than building for X-Wing and Snapships. I hope Stone Sword makes an app that would make it easier to build without looking through every card and every character. Movement can feel clunky at times with the mandatory moves. Getting to striking distance with a few first turns, like it's going to take you 1 to 3 turns to get within striking distance here. But I get the mentality of it. You're preparing for a fight, you're psyching yourself out, you're focusing, so you're kind of going through that. It also gives you time if you have cards that will shift your Kame ring around to help you position to get the advantage of certain cards you want to play, but that's also a tell. The terrain pretty much all feels the same. They all cause stun. Some of them cause damage, some of them cause hobble on top of it. There's only one terrain that's even destroyable, which is the bamboo shoots. The shrine is super important for heavy focus play, but the terrain's a little boring. The negative effect cards do offer a huge change of attacking and reacting. Only the bleed seems broken with how hard it is to remove. I like the card mechanic of the core cards. If you watch our live plays, you know I'm cursed with dice. Cards give me more control, especially if I get to build a deck with them. I love that it rewards strategic thinking and good gameplay design. The games are fairly quick. The box actually says 20 minutes, and anytime a box says something, it's usually a recommendation. No, it's about 20 minutes. That is for one-on-one. For free-for-all, it's a little bit longer, but that's because you got more people. So I would say free-for-all, still less than an hour for 4 players. This doesn't include setup, which is about 5 to 10 minutes, and deck building, since, like I stated earlier, deck building takes a long time. Even if you use the precons, it takes a while. All the cards are numbered in the corner, bottom right-hand corner. They all have a number. But if you are the way I am with sorting out all my stuff, like you saw the stack of silver cards, or steel cards, there is a lot of cards. And going through everything and then putting everything back, the numbers help with that. They aren't numbered in any real logical order, if that helps. All right, to recap. I hate giving number scores. I rather say something like I'd rather eat a pastrami sandwich or, some CBT. But anyways, packaging, 9 out of 10. This really should be the standard for game design. You should get your stuff to fit in the box it comes in organized. It's not 100% perfect, but it's pretty close. Components. I'm going to give the components 7 out of 10. The minis being deformed, I can accept that. But the weird tacky feeling and smelling of cancer, it's something I've never experienced with any pre-washed mini that I've had from a board game. I mean, I get most of my Awakened Realm stuff sun-dropped and never has that issue, feel, or smell. Gameplay, 8 out of 10. There are some issues with theme not fitting with the combat cards and restrictions on who can have what weapons. Luck is still involved in drawing the cards you need. and one misstep can either be fatal or just cripple your gameplay. Replayability is a 10 out of 10. It is still a very small card pool, but if you want more variety, you have to buy more characters, and you'll not have enough card variety because they're spread out in the expansion packs. I'm not holding that against Stone Sword games. The big box delivers a lot of stuff to build for 4 players. There are not enough copies of cards for everyone at 3 or 1 each, but card variety and character cards would make it difficult to fight for certain cards that you really need for your build. Final score. It's a 34 out of 40, and that's like super, super generous. I usually don't like saying that, but Senjutsu is one of those games that, for me, works really well. If you like maneuvering games, Senjutsu is a definite try before you buy. And if you really like the theme and everything I have in this video, you should go check out Stone Sword's webpage. They're doing a, I think, pre-sale for it. Honestly, if you can get the all-in, it's way cheaper than getting into X-Wing or Armada, really, or Snap Ships. For the price less than $200, everything you get is pretty good. I don't think the sleeves are included, though. I am definitely looking forward to more games from Stone Sword. I know I saw something with War of Hogs. That looks really cool, but it's out of stock. I might have to pick that up. But what I'm looking forward to is the tournament play and more expansions for the game. They've already started releasing some information and weird holiday card things on the webpage. Go check it out. And Senjutsu is part of a trilogy for the Battle of Japan. Their next game is Daimyo. It's really late, but I guess that's on time for Kickstarter standpoints. But it should be, the pledge for it should be coming out soon. It's going to be designed by Martin Wallace, I think. And if you love brass, I love brass. I'm actually looking forward to it. I am hoping that Daimyo is just as good and gives me that, like, I want to play it again feeling that Senjutsu does. I'm also really impressed with the effort that they put into Senjutsu. From what I can tell, they only have like 4 big games, and Senjutsu is very impressive, especially for being this early. Usually game companies either do really well in the beginning or start doing really bad when they make a lot of stuff. So we'll see where that goes. Again, these are just my opinions on Senjutsu. I'm not paid or sponsored in any way to say that it's good. I really do honestly feel like it's a good game. I definitely do wish I was paid to say stuff, maybe in the future. Just a reminder, check out my 2024 giveaway video if you want a chance to win some free loot. Subscribing is not required, but it helps. Other than that, check out some other videos. Take care, everyone, and GG's.